Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Eddie Marcus here again. This morning, my message for you is when governments, democracies, dictatorships, authoritarian governments, socialist governments, communist governments, when they are oppressors. These systems of governments are oppressors, all of them, to a individual that has been born again. When I speak of being born again, I'm speaking of the understanding, the acceptance, the realization of a power that is unseen, that is seen. And it opens one's ability to understand. To that one, all of the systems of the world are oppressors. You see, that one understands that in living according to the principles of life, there is no lying, no cheating, no stealing, no killing, no terror, no war, no hatred, no racism, no bigotry. Where that stuff exists is hell. And that stuff exists all over the world. It exists in Russia. It exists in North Korea. It exists in Israel. It exists in Iran. It exists in the United States. All of this crap exists because this is hell. Now, this is not hell to people who have not been born again. You see, people who have not been born again will accept anything to live. They will accept anything to live because their greatest fear is death. Their greatest fear is death, and they will do anything to live. And as long as you will do anything to live, the devil got control over you. Because the number one thing that you got to be able to do is to sacrifice everything for the truth, to sacrifice everything for righteousness, to sacrifice everything for the true life. And what is the true life? Is the invisible life that you can't see, that we can't see here through our material, humanistic blind eyes. We can't see it. We don't understand that. But for those of you who are Christians, the whole life of Jesus Christ, living amongst the people just as we have done and as we are doing. And yet, in the finale of it, we got a chance to see what the message of his living about the powers that we can't see is, that when given the opportunity to be ruler, basically, of the earth, to be ruler of wherever he was, to be ruler under the authority of the crook, under the authority of evil, but to rule under the authority of lies and cheating and stealing and killing and using his powers to do the things that he does. He could rule the world. And what did the message from Jesus say to us? It said, they offer you the world, turn your back on it. Why? Because that stuff ain't real. That's fake. That's temporary. The spirit is forever. That doesn't mean, I don't know what it means. I started to tell you a couple of things that crossed my mind, but I just tell you that you wouldn't understand that. So I don't want to do any more confusion than I can handle. So what I'm saying to all of us, ladies and gentlemen, is this. Yes, I speak to you about what it is like You know how simple it is by the earth being from the God, and all the resources that we'll ever need outside of ourselves have already been given to us from the beginning of the creation of the earth. Some of it is in the earth, some on the earth, some above the earth, some seen, some unseen, but here nonetheless. And all the understanding that we need, all the information that we need in this world comes to us through human imagination. All things exist by way of the imagination. And the things that are required outside of the world, but is required of us, is disseminated amongst us. The information through that imagination, that hunger, which gives us an identity to the gifts that we are called and charged to do. And exercising it, it gives us our greatest joy. So we have the greatest joy in living. And what are we doing? Creating. What are we creating? What we are being led to create. And what we're being led to create are those things that for some strange reason humankind found a wonderful need for, or want for, or desire for. So, hey baby, this is what I'm talking about. This is what the Spirit shows you. This is what I say I want to live like. And if I'm in a world that living with lies and cheating and stealing and killing, and I don't care what you tell them, you can tell them that there's pain that's out here that the people are suffering. It comes from the system, and the people don't give a damn. They just want to continue to dog eat dog. They just want to continue to prove how wonderful they are. They want to continue to walk in the steps that they've been trained in. Hey, nobody can change that but them. And that comes with an understanding, a realization. But for me, hey, that don't make me submit. I know this world is worth. Uh, I remember a moment earlier, and I was thinking about the story when there's say the devil or whatever you want to call that spirit that came up to Adam and Eve and told them about challenging them about the information that they'll die if they ate off that tree, and that they would die, and said you wouldn't surely die. Death. And he got and challenged them, and they got weak. The weakest one gave in first. Who was that? I don't know. And then they gave in. They said, oh, nothing changed, they thought. But everything had changed. Everything had changed at that moment. At that moment, the God that they had been listening to, they were not listening to any longer. They had a new God. Who would they listen to? The one that told them that they would not surely die. And got them on that side of the fence and promised them if they did not submit, they would, because they would be killed. And so now in order to be killed, you got to willingly be killed. You got to have your eyes open. You got to know something else that you haven't been knowing. And so you're going to bend and you're going to bow. That's what we all do in the world. We bend and we bow. So it doesn't matter whether the world is offered to you, the whole world is offered to you, or just a little bit above, or even at the welfare line. So from the welfare line to the richest man on earth, to the richest nation on earth, to the greatest nation on earth, to the knowest nothing. All of it is hell bent. That's the message. That's the message that I've been given. I don't know what the other folks have been given to tell you, but I've been given to tell you that until we change. And so that basically means that we're not going to all change at the same time. But you will know the ones that have changed because they're not settling for the way the world is. They are drawing attention to the ugliness by exposing it and revealing, giving information about how it should be. They ain't trying to fight you. They just ain't submitting. They ain't going along with this crap. See, everybody else goes along with it to stay out of jail, to stay out of trouble, because they got some stuff to keep you in line. But if you free, You ain't getting in that stuff. You ain't buying into it. You got to be in jail. That's a sign that you ain't buying that crap. Going to prison, that's a sign you ain't buying that stuff. Standing up and letting them shoot you down, that's a sign saying you got to be connected with God. And everybody wake up and listen. That brother knew, that sister knew what he's talking about. Even the threat of death didn't stop them. And they took death, telling us that death is all right when you're standing up for the right stuff. That's all I want to share with America today. That's all I want to share with you, with the world. This is the way I really feel. And sometimes I try to set it up and try to make it sound kind of decent. And I don't think I was I don't think I was indecent today. What do you think? But have I been effective? What I want you to know is that you ain't tricking God. You might be hooked up with a church and all y'all doing the same little things. And God look like to me that if you got any kind of decency in you, any kind of spirit in you, when you sitting up in a church organization, I don't care how small it is, I don't care how big it is. I don't care whether you're sitting there and just listening, nobody having any emotional outbursts or anything, or whether they're sitting there just waving their hand and having the church falling on the floor. Look like you ought to know. That ain't nothing but game. It ain't nothing but game. God is love, baby. And if you had love in you, you wouldn't be trying to hurt nobody. You would be doing everything you possibly can to make sure that pain is eliminated. Now, before I go, I'll say one more last thing. I don't know if it's true or not, but on my social media page, I don't hear too much about it on the regular news, so I don't know if this stuff is true or not. You know, since the past year or two, they start telling us lies and trying to convince us that lies are truth. So you got media that does the same thing. So you see something, you don't really know if it's true or not. You hear something, you don't know if it's true or not. That's how that confusion started. That's how that confusion started. But anyway, over in China, they are talking about torrential floods. They are talking about China being, devastated. People being, property, everything just being, in like other places, in Indonesia, in Japan, and these places, it happens at the United States, but based upon how I'm looking at it on this TV, on this media, I'm sure they got it fixed up to make it really get you. But it gets me. And I'm thinking, the stuff that we going through, the stuff that we fighting over, the ugliness that we perpetuate, trying to pretend that we somebody, like we're more than the next. These people are our brothers and sisters living in another room. And I don't care how much they might have been progressive. They need help. But are we in any position to help anybody? No, we are not. We are like ghetto America and the rest of the world. When you think you got something going on, you know how you just can't stand the ghetto. Well, when you start looking at things clear-eyed, the whole nation look like in a ghetto because you're not ready. You're not prepared. You're not ready. You're not prepared. We spend our lives over stupid stuff. Lying, cheating, and stealing, and cheating, and when we could be living. And you got politicians, not a single one I'm talking to you about stuff like this. And you bend over backwards trying to find out which one you're going to support. Because you don't support stuff like living. Now, I was just supposed to give you that message this morning. I want to thank you so very much for bearing with me. Until next time, this is Eddie Marcus saying goodbye.